Another Resident Evil title on current-gen consoles was, in a sense, inevitable. Seeing as how fans were eager to see another Resident Evil, Capcom obviously delivered it. What was more surprising wasn't a delay in development of RE6, rather it was an earlier release date of the game, as well as going back to its roots to an extent. Zombies are back, as well as classic favorites like Leon, Chris, Ada, and more. However, can the new Resident Evil 6 be deemed as a survival horror game? Does RE6 make people feel like how it felt like playing Resident Evil 4, or even going further back to the first Resident Evil games? As a whole, the game is separated into 3 campaigns, which is Leon's campaign, Chris Redfield's campaign, and Jake's campaign. And Jake is a new character in Resident Evil 6, who also happens to be Wesker's son. Each of the 3 lead characters has a partner, and there is a split-screen co-op option, as well as co-op over Xbox Live and PlayStation Network. Jake's partner in his playthrough is Sherry Birkin, the daughter of William Birkin back in Resident Evil 2. The 3 campaigns have their own playstyle and behavior to it. Leon's provides more of a traditional over-the-shoulder playstyle like Resident Evil 4 and 5. Even though there is a cover system in Resident Evil 6, it's not really necessary in Leon's playthrough. And in his campaign, the main enemy are zombies. Some zombies try to duck and dodge incoming attacks, lunge at you, and some even carry weapons. As many fans know, there can't be an appearance of Leon without Ada, and from time to time, she pops in and out of Leon's story to somewhat aid him with his mission. Chris and Jake's story has them fighting the enemy known as the Javo, who oftentimes mutate into grotesque beings in their last moments of life. They also have automatic weapons and RPGs, so using cover in their stories is useful. The melee combat is very useful in all storylines because ammo can be scarce between checkpoints, so whenever you're close to an enemy, it is recommended to use some fisticuffs. The quick shot is also a useful technique when in tight corners. Just squeeze both of the triggers at once and the closest enemy will be shot, giving you some breathing room. It's almost like a useful auto-target in a sense. Enemies this time around not only drop ammo, they also drop skill points from time to time, which you can use as currency to increase your firepower, your melee damage, and a lot more. The herb usage has been given a makeover for the greater good. Not much time is needed to mix green herbs and red herbs now. When you gather them up, you can convert them into tablets and then press a button so you can consume the herb tablets to regain some health. You don't need to go into a menu to regain some health, being that it is done in real time now.
Alright, then let me help.
Yes, these campaigns are separate, but there are situations within the stories where they will intertwine with each other. These instances of merger add some more excitement within the game. Not only are there cutscenes that merge the stories together, but there are some boss fights that will do this as well. Quick time events are plentiful in Resident Evil 6 to the point where it's predictable. Mercenaries mode makes a return in Resident Evil 6, and it's just like how it was back in Resident Evil 5. This doesn't mean it's a bad thing though. There are some slight changes to it. You can pick up skill points in Mercenaries and buy skills which can alter your Mercenaries play experience. And there are your traditional time bonus crystal columns to find in Bash, as well as finding green crystal columns which are combo bonuses. And the longer you stay within the Mercenaries round, it will get harder with mini-bosses being added to the map the longer you are alive. Now, easily the most aggravating thing in Resident Evil 6 is how the enemies die. Oftentimes, after unloading so much lead into one enemy, they will still walk, and then their necks will stretch like Play-Doh before falling and disintegrating. This is a very bad glitch that has to be fixed with a patch sooner rather than later. On top of that, within melee combat, sometimes the buttons will not register the punch or the kick, and sometimes your attack will go through the enemy. And the sound is off. Sometimes you won't hear the gunshots, and sometimes you will not hear the punches or kicks when you're in melee combat. Resident Evil 6 is an action game. There isn't much horror for it to be called a survival horror title. Honestly, the last survival horror game that had the Resident Evil name was Resident Evil 4. RE4 is scarier than RE6, and that's not even an opinion. This doesn't mean that the Resident Evil franchise is dead. The latest Resident Evil is an action game, and it's a fine game. Also, it's a relatively easy game too. I just hope with future installments of Resident Evil, if there is anything for the future of the Resident Evil games, that Capcom will make a Resident Evil that will go back to being a true survival horror game.